USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
I'm Sam Peck. My brother was in the Navy. Both my parents were in the Navy, World War II. I had an uncle and was in the Army, World War I, and an uncle in the Army in World War II. And then our most illustrious veteran was my great-grandfather, Cassius Peck, who was in the Civil War on the Union side. He was, it turns out, part of the U.S., what they call the U.S. sharpshooters. And those were essentially like the Green Beret of the Union Army in that war. In 1862, just after Antietam, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. My father was the Navy civil servant, and he was working in the missile space program, and they were tracking the Mercury capsules as it was one of the picket line stations as the Mercury capsules went around, and they could communicate with those guys. And he was transferred to Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands. You know, there were 12 kids in our senior class. There was no other high school for 1,000 miles. So that's where, by the time we got done graduating from there, we didn't have any other plans and didn't have any grades particularly to go on to college. So my dad decided, being an all-Navy guy, that we could really use some time in the Marine Corps to get us shaped up. And so we plea-bargained that down to the Navy. Well, I mean, there were a couple of reasons for the Seabees. One was when I was a kid, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, the John Wayne movie, the Fighting Seabees. Kind of romanticized the whole thing. Here they were out in the Pacific Islands and, you know, building the airstrips and fighting off the Japanese. And McHale's Navy was another show that I really liked. So if I could get in the Seabees, I would probably found my people. So I was designated a steel worker, and my orders were for Mobile Construction Battalion 10, MCB-10, who were at the moment in Guam. So in 1964 and 1965, MCB-10 became what they call the Alert Battalion. We got orders to go down to El Toro Marine Corps Air Station, and we learned how to build a SATS, a short takeoff and landing runway out of air matting. And essentially this is an aircraft carrier on the deck. And so you put down the matting, you have an arresting gear with a cable, you didn't have a steam catapult like they do on the carrier, but they used JATO bottles, these jet bottles they would attach to the sides of the aircraft, and they would just get to the end of the runway and blast off. And then when they come back in, they use the tail hook and hook up. So that's the system. Then we deployed to Okinawa and started loading ships with lots of air matting. We were on the Washtenaw County, which was an LST. About 5 days into this, they announced that we're going into a place called Chu Lai, Vietnam. Johnson started Rolling Thunder, which is a famous bombing campaign, which occurred at the same time. And his idea was that he could back the North Vietnamese off by bombing the hell out of them. And then the second thing was that they wanted to set up these enclaves along the coast, little airfields that could supply air support to the ARVN, the South Vietnamese Army, who were just getting their asses kicked. On May 7, I think, this was 65 ships. This was the largest amphibious landing since Incheon in Korea. And it was like little D-Day. I mean, it was like, all the landing craft, the Marines over the sides, and the landing craft going to the beach, and air support from Da Nang was overhead, and the jets were overhead. It was really quite interesting. And so then it came our turn to go in. We went in with our LST, landed, started to offload all our equipment. Chu Lai was just rolling sand dunes. And they had sort of forgot to teach us how to drive in the sand. And we have to start immediately on this runway. This runway is supposed, technically, theoretically, is supposed to be built in 72 hours.
Seabees move in right behind the Marines. They find their enemy, sand. Sand so deep, even powerful earth movers bog down.
So they can't build a runway on the sand. So there's, up to the north of us, there's a little mountain, and it's got all this clay in it. So they establish a quarry up there, and we assign all our dump trucks to go up to this quarry, and they had this shovel, like not a steam shovel, but a shovel. It was loading the trucks with this. So we had to build a road from the quarry down, it's about 1.5 miles, down through these boonies to where the airfield was. And then lay this laterite down for the length of the runway as a foundation. So I volunteered to drive one of these dump trucks. The scary part of that is you're driving this thing, it was a 24-hour operation, and I wound up driving a lot at night. And I didn't have a shotgun driver. I just had my M14 sitting next to me in the truck. And we're in these boonies which were just, looked to me like just ambush country. And the assumption was, because this area was so infested with Viet Cong, which was part of the reason we were there, that the villagers who were around, they were fishermen and villagers, were probably were friendlies during the daytime, but at night, probably not. We're now a month into this 72-hour operation. And there's a Marine air squadron up in Da Nang who's waiting for this airfield. One day, this C-130 flies over really low, and out of the back of it pops this little parachute with a box. It comes down, lands on the airfield. And so we go over, and in the box is a little Vietnamese Sun Bear Cub. And there's a note attached from this air squadron in Da Nang saying, here's your new mascot, and we've named him Boo Boo after your airfield. And then we kept Boo Boo, had a little cage for him, fed him. After the deployment, we took him back to the San Diego Zoo, which is a very famous zoo, and donated him to the San Diego Zoo. Just to jump up a notch, our second deployment was to Da Nang, where we found Boo Boo a mate, a female sun bear, and took her back when we came back the second time, and then took her to the zoo. So the zoo had a pair of Sun Bear Cubs donated by MCB-10. Yeah, that was my Christmas card in 1965. Anyway, so yeah, and that was, you can see the sand, we're sitting in the sand, and that's all there was out there. 3 major things happened there. One was Operation Starlite, which was the first big, this was in 65, the first big Marine combat operation of the war. And this was about 6 miles south of the Chu Lai airfield. And they got into a kick-ass battle with the Viet Cong and the National Liberation Force people, heavily armed people, well-trained apparently. Marines lost 45 killed. And then all those Marine bodies were lined up on our runway. And one of the sad spectacles was that a C-130 would come in, and the new kids, the replacements, would come off the back of the C-130 in their shiny new greens, and they would have to walk past all these Marine body bags, and then who were being loaded on that same airplane to fly back to the States. We also had another episode Two F-106s, I think they were coming up from the south. We were down at the runway. One was out over the bay, and one was coming in really low, like he was going to land on our airfield, but he didn't have any landing gear. It looks like he's going to attempt a belly landing on this all aluminum airfield. He comes in, goes right past us, and lands on the edge of the runway, takes 2 hops into the sand dunes and explodes in this massive fireball. So we run over there, and there's just smoking bits of airplane. His helmet was there, and then these weird pieces of like smoldering meat, and it was in the sand, which was him. Then in around October, the base was actually attacked, and Viet Cong came in, sappers, and destroyed 6 Skyhawks. Didn't destroy them. They completely destroyed 2, and badly damaged 4 others. And then that was kind of it. We had been there. We built a big MAG, which was Marine Air Group helicopter pad up on the north of us, and then we were done. And then in May, I think, of '66, we deployed again. So we came into Da Nang, which was a completely different environment than we had been in. Da Nang was like going into civilization. So we went in and we trucked up to Hill 327, which was where MCB-4 was, and we relieved them and took over whatever projects they were working on. They were working on 2 big projects. One was an amphitheater that had to be done by December for the Bob Hope Christmas show. And then also, adjacent to that, they were building a big PX, all out of Butler Building Materials. Classic American war, you got to have a big entertainment venue, and you got to have a shopping center. So all of that, coming out of Chu Lai, I just thought, no, this is just, I hated that. So they decide I'm maybe a little too disruptive for the work. So they transfer me over to Alpha Company welding shop. And there was one guy there, so now I'm there. So it's just the 2 of us, which is great. And we're working on all kinds of damaged equipment's coming in. We have to build spare parts out of nothing, stock steel and things. And so it's really challenging work. Shortly after I got there, it was decided that we needed to have a mobile welding unit. So they gave me a 6x, a flatbed. So I'm out, tripping around Da Nang and sightseeing and whatever. It's just a whole new level of freedom. So I would run out of acetylene sometimes, gas, and then that's the end of the gas welding. So you can't do brazing and you can't do gas welding. So I would have to go on a COMSHA mission to steal some more gas. So I would load up a weapons carrier, which was like a little truck, with all my empties, and go out to Red Beach, which is out the main Marine Supply Center, and drive through the gate like I knew what I was doing, like I belonged there, just shoot on through, back down to this warehouse where they kept all that stuff, unload the empties, fill my truck up with 5 brand new full containers, and head back out, and I'm back in business. There was a project in the shop. They had damaged some equipment they had borrowed from the Marines. A lowboy trailer somehow had been, the plate was bent up, and so that was, they had to return it fixed. So that was my job. So I had to fix that. So I said, okay, well, I need to go over to the Naval Supply Center, which is over by Monkey Mountain, and it was way across the Da Nang River and way across over on the coast. Rumor had it that the EM club there didn't have any ration on beer. So a couple of the mechanics wanted to go with me. So I said, okay, fine. So around 10 o'clock that night, we left our rifles back because we didn't want to take a chance on having them stolen while we're either screwing around or comp showing or whatever. That would be highly bad news. And sure enough, you can have all the beer you want. So we probably had 4 or 5 beers that we weren't used to having, and stayed there for a while, and it's time to come back. So we have to go back through Da Nang City, which is pretty no man's landy, and it's monsoon season, and all these roads are dirt roads. There's no paved roads. And all of a sudden there's this deluge of monsoon rain. And this is so dense, I mean, you can see maybe 30 feet in front of the truck. Somehow we get off on there's a fork, and we get off on the wrong fork. So now we're going down this dirt road, sailing along, thinking everything's good. And all of a sudden the truck, this is a road they're just building, and the road ends, and it's all rice paddies, and the truck goes whoosh, off the end of the road into the rice paddy, and now it's buried in this rice paddy. So, and it's pitch dark. It's probably midnight. So the 2 mechanics decide, okay, they're going to get out and they're going to go back up this road, try to find their way back to the camp, our camp, get a dump truck, load it with rock from the quarry, and come back with a cable and pull the truck out. So that's the plan. I'm going to stay there with the truck. So I've got the headlights on or out across the rice paddies, and it's still raining, not as hard, but it's coming down. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there's 2 Vietnamese, like in their 20s or so, show up at my passenger side door. And they're looking in. And so at midnight, I'm figuring, okay, these are not friendly people. So I decide I have to create a commotion, and enough to where I can get out of the truck and run back up the road where the mechanics went. I'm tinkering with the ignition, and I'm mumbling some nonsense to them. And I get out of the truck, go out to the bumper, the front bumper, get on the front bumper. So I lift the hood up, and I'm holding it up, and I'm on the bumper, and I'm looking down in the engine compartment. I'm leaning way down. I think I pulled out a couple of distributor wires or something just to look like I was doing something. And so one guy gets out of the truck, and he gets on the bumper with me. So he's up there. The other guy's still in the cab. And so I get him looking, he's looking way in, so I can get him to looking, pointing at something, and he's looking, and I take the hood and I just slam it down as hard as I can on him. So now he's all crunched into the engine, and I jump down, and my plan is to run, down alongside the truck, get past the truck and down this road in the dark. So I get right at the back of the truck and slip in this mud and fall down in the mud. Now I've lost my advantage, and these guys, there's a lot of screaming going on and carrying on. So the only thing left to do, the rice paddy is like about 1.5 foot to 2 feet of water. It's full of rice. So I just literally just fall off the road into the rice paddy. So I slip into the rice paddy, and I'm sort of getting away from the truck, moving away, and the headlights are on, so I'm really in the dark. So I'm using the rice to pull myself along through this rice paddy, and I've got my nose like just that much out of the water. These rice paddies had the berms, separated them, so I went up over very quietly, went up over that, down into the next rice paddy, pulled myself along, down through another rice paddy, pulled myself along. I come to a cyclone fence. It's big. It's about probably at least 12 feet high, and across the top is barbed wire. 10 feet beyond that is another fence just like it. So cyclone fence, barbed wire. So this is, as it turns out, the perimeter for the main perimeter for the Da Nang Air Base. I take my shirt off. I have this green t-shirt. Take that off and wrap it around my hands and climb the fence and use that to get over the barbed wire, get it down the other side. And I'm hoping this area in the between is not mined. I didn't hit anything, so I don't know. Wasn't probably. So I climb over up the next fence, and I'm up to the very top of that fence, and here comes the German Shepherds and the Marines. And I'm sitting up on the top of this fence looking every bit like, you know, an intruder. And so they've got the rifles up and they're halt, who goes there? And the dogs are all barking, and this is just this scene. And I'm yelling, American, American. So they have me climb down, and I tell them the story. They tell the story to a Marine captain there, and he loads me in a Jeep, and they take me down to the military police headquarters in Da Nang. So I get down there, and I'm standing there in front of this, you know, major or whatever he was. And I'm standing there, but soaking wet, you know, just my combat boots and greens, and all these rice plants hanging out down the front of my pants, and no shirt. And I'm telling him this story. And so the guy says, well, he says, you know, you're really a lucky guy, because a week ago, we found a Marine dead with his throat cut, not that far from where we found your truck. And I was going to be getting out in 6 months, and got out in about June 1967. So I got a job with Scandinavian Airlines at LAX. And Scandinavian Airlines and Thai Airways had a joint operation going. So I got transferred to the Thai sales office. And when I went to Bangkok, I just fell in love with the place. One of my first things was I assigned myself company photographer, because that was my hobby. And then we got into some, you know, situation where we had to change the corporate identity of Thai away from Scandinavian Airlines. So Boeing, who I had a relationship with over the years with these air-to-air shoots and all this stuff, they said, we have a project, a special project we're developing, and we wonder if you would like to be part of it. And the project was to solve a problem that they had in Vietnam. The U.S. trade embargo on Vietnam that was from 1975 all the way to 1994. So Boeing couldn't go in and sell them airplanes. So the plan was that they had budgeted $2 million for this complete corporate identity redo, image redo for Vietnam Airlines. And would I go and oversee that? So we get our visa, get on they were at least wet leased a 737 from a Swiss company to fly the Hong Kong Hanoi route. The headquarters is out across the Red River, out in a neighborhood called Zalum, and that was one of their main MiG bases during the war. We have the green tea, and it's, you know, it's all very formal. And Boeing, sales manager, he makes the offer to help them with their image. So meanwhile, we leave that meeting, and it's all good. And I'm noticing the lotus flower, ponds of these beautiful lotus flower, white and pink flowers. And I'm thinking, you know, that would be a really nice corporate symbol for this airline. Then in '97, finally, the United States and Vietnam established diplomatic relations. This blue plane had become so controversial. The Prime Minister didn't like it. I've got to do these presentations over and over again. This is like getting into like 7 years. Finally, we get up to around 2000. The big news is that Vietnam and the United States have just signed a historic bilateral trade agreement. And the following day, the next big announcement is that the government, Vietnam Airlines, through Vietnam Airlines, is buying 3 brand new 777s from the Boeing company. It's now or never. If you don't sign these documents, you're not going to have a painted new 777 coming out. So I pushed them over to him and he signed them all off. One more trip to Seattle for the rollout of this airplane, which you have in the back of the book, and that was it. That was the punctuation. So that was really a hell of an adventure and a great project. Great way to end a career.